the NMRA because it's not as big in the UK. But the manufacturers have, and we support them, and they want to talk to us. Final thing, next year it's 90 years of the NMRA. We're 90 years young next year. Fortunately, 90 is not the average age of our membership, but it is the age of our organization. And so there'll be a series of events kicking off with Amherst, where we're celebrating 90 years of the NMRA. If you want to get involved, please get in touch with me. I'm still trying to line up quite a lot of different things. I'd love NRail and NTRaK and T-TRAK and Primo N to all be part of that story as we look at where we've come from and where we are. Part of that I can tell you now will be that the NMRA, not an independent person, the NMRA will bring Trainfest back from next year as an annual event at the fairgrounds, not at the new downtown location that is being put on this year, not by train. This isn't by the NMRA, it's by Train Shows Inc. So we'll be looking for the NRail communities to support us with that. Obviously, it's 250,000 square foot, plenty of space for layouts, plenty of space for vendors. We're looking at putting on some additional activities as well, similar to what we've just seen there in Oklahoma. So I really do want it to be a festival of model railroading, and it feels right that 90 years of the NMRA started in Milwaukee, going back to Milwaukee and making sure we've got an NMRA event every year going forward is really important to us. So that's done. That will happen. And we're working closely with our NMRA members and team members that are in the Wisconsin area to make sure that's happening next year. So same dates as usual, same weekend as normal, back to the old venue, back to Trainfest, but this time being run by the NMRA as a national NMRA, not being run by one division. So there's more resources and more support. I guess that was everything I kind of wanted to update you on. I'm sorry if people thought I was going to ramble forever. But I'm just post having an operation, so I'm not quite back in the swing of things just now. But that's kind of everything. So has anybody got any questions that they really burning wanted me to answer about anything in particular? I don't see any, but John?
Gordy, let me just come back to, because you were going through that pretty fast. So the NMRA is getting involved with Trainfest. Trainfest is going to be kind of reconstituted as a annual, huge national train show. The NMRA will be right in the center of that. Big opportunities for this could be, I think, and we expect that would be another place where in-scale modular railroads would be set up every year like clockwork, just like some of the other places. That to me sounds like one of the biggest things that's happened in the NMRA in the last 5 years.
Gordy?
Yep.
Do you have dates for this?
For Trainfest?
Yes.
I can't tell you what they are next year off the top of my head, but it's going to be the same weekend that it used to be, which I believe is the weekend before Thanksgiving.
Right. I think that's what it is.
So
right before Thanksgiving.
Okay.
But I don't have that date on the top of my head, but if you're aiming for the third weekend in November, you'll be about right.
Thank you.
So. Yeah, I think that's just awesome, Gordy. Just awesome. One other thing I thought you might just kind of say a couple words about with this group, the in-scale community and the NMRA have a long history that goes back to T-TRAK. NTRaK coming out of the basement and big presence at shows. In the last couple of decades, there's been more of this talk about how, we don't get along as well as we used to, or maybe the NMRA is not for in-scalers and all that. And you and I are on the inside, and we're both in-scale model railroaders, so it's even more ironic. But, today there's so much going on, I think, and so many opportunities for in-scalers to be a part of the NMRA and vice versa. Wonder if you just comment on that, kind of. There's the Operations Roadshow. There's just a whole bunch of activity there. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So yeah, the people say your grandfather's NMRA has gone away. There's still elements and pockets that it's still there. I know that, but no, the NMRA is not anti-N scale in any way, shape, or form. I don't think we ever were, but I can understand where the perception came. Unlike the issue really is HO doesn't have an organization like NRail. The N scale community has the organizations to represent it, but HO doesn't. So the HO clan kind of all suck to the NMRA, which is fine and it's great, but it's not the only scale the NMRA is interested in. And the one thing that's always interested me about the NMRA is we don't care what scale it is as long as it's scale, you know. So
Right.
so absolutely not. And I think we're trying very much to add as many opportunities as we can. The NMRA is hugely supportive of a number of things that go unnoticed and unsaid. You know, with regards to RPM meets, we provide almost all the insurance for every single RPM meet that takes place. We've also just started with Lee Corkins and a few others. We've just started a 100% NMRA member club called NEG, which is the N Scale Events Group. And that's so the NMRA can provide insurance for us to set up modular events, and we're looking for venues across the country. And that's being, you know, supported by the NMRA. It's be a huge expense for us to cover the insurance of that any other way. So the NMRA isn't anti-N scale. I'm an MMR. I did my MMR predominantly with N scale. It wasn't the only scale that I did. The past president of the British region is another N scaler who's just done his MMR. So there's a significant number of N scalers in the NMRA, and you look around the board of the NMRA now. There's John, myself, there's Andy, there's Speed, 4 N scalers off the top of my head. Rick Coble as well. He's another N scaler. There's just so many. As the vice president, there's just so many N scalers in the leadership of the NMRA now. I don't think it's possible to say that we are anti-N scale in any way, shape, or form. And we're trying to expand that as well, because we want to be representative of all the scales. So we've got a project that John's heading up called Scale Connections, which or Connectors, I think it is, which is where we're trying to make sure we have a similar level of engagement to what we have with the NRail group, with all the other scales as well. But you know, we're trying our best to provide as many opportunities as possible to give you guys the opportunity to do what you do best and set up a huge amount of stuff. In terms of, as someone just put a question on anti-N, is at division level of the NMRA? I think that depends where you are. There are 175 divisions in the NMRA. I'm not going to say that they are anti-N scale. I know some divisions that are anti-HO. But all that is that's the people that are there, and that's what their interest is. You know, it's difficult if you're the only N scaler in the room. It's difficult if you're the only. There's a group in the East Midlands of the UK that only do N scale Fremo, so they only do Fremo N to their own modular standard. Lee, you'd have a fit, but it's their own standard. It works, but they only do N scale, and that group used to be 100% HO, and the HO guys felt pushed out, and they went off to the West Midlands. So we've got the West is HO and the East is N. But that's down to the people. That's down to us as human beings.
Yeah.
And we've done a lot of stuff recently. We've published membership expectations of how our members behave. We've published leadership expectations for how our leaders behave. And we're putting down the message from the top to the bottom of our organization to say we've got to be accepting of model railroaders. Doesn't matter. We're not scalist. I don't know. Maybe that's a new thing, right? We're not the equivalent of some kind of ism because of the scale that somebody's in. We're here to be helping people get the maximum enjoyment out of the hobby. So it doesn't matter what scale you model. It doesn't matter whether you're like me and you model all 3 or 4 different scales. It's all about enjoying the hobby and enjoying what you do. So that's what we're about. If you've got a problem at division level and you're encountering resistance or negativity towards your scale, and by a majority of people, then I suggest that gets escalated to whatever your local region leadership would be, and I guarantee that they will do something about it and there'll be a conversation. I know there's a few division leaders on this call right now. I know of one who started a T-TRAK group within their division. So I don't think it's fair to say that division level hates N scale, because it's pockets as
Right.
with anything. So
yeah, appreciate that, Gordy.
You're
Okay. Super. And I'm applying for Medicare this week, so I'm looking forward to finding out whether grouper is going to work for me too. I know there are a lot of people out there saying that just doesn't make any sense at all. But in fact, it's a lot like it's a lot like your insurance company paying for you to be a member of a club, of a gym membership. To the basic idea is if you're involved in a hobby, then you're probably healthier, you live longer, and you spend less time in the hospital. So all good, all good, all good. All right. Next up on the program is going to be Terry Moore and another edition here of Talking T-TRAK.
Talkin' T-TRAK. This month, we'll talk about some large module set ideas. T-TRAK layout modules don't need to follow the standards when they create a separate scene. NRail's own Bruce Alcock posted this link to the N-Scale Architects website, promoting their new Ironton Ordock group of module kits on the T-TRAK Facebook site. When he posted this, he issued a challenge to the T-TRAK community. Okay, how do we fit one of these on a T-TRAK module? The sizing of the individual sections of the overall model does not lend itself to T-TRAK module lengths, and at 40 inches, 5 8-inch sections, plus the needed track approach, it will take more than one module. At 40 inches in length, the Ordock structure could be a single module, just a little longer than a triple. Ordocks tower far above the landscape of the neighboring shoreline. As a result, the rail approach to the Ordock includes an incline and trestles. The first part of the siding may include a natural landform, or a man-made hill may be created as required, and then the higher section approaching the Ordock would include an overhead trestle as rail lines or yards and roadways are encountered. Here in Thunder Bay, a long sweeping curve on fill was used. After a girder bridge was used to cross over a major north-south roadway, a long trestle continued over a rail yard and for the remaining distance to the Ordock. This simple plan uses a common large junction and a pair of large corners and a crossover module. Or make a full-blown display with an Ordock siding with a 9-foot storage receiving yard. Number 6 turnouts are used exclusively to reduce stress on the trains, since most, if not all, movements will be shoves. Ordock length depends on the number of sections used. The modules could be wider for a second slip on the left side of the dock. In a loop layout, skinny modules may be required due to the 180-degree corners. The incline grade of the approach curves would equal that of a single helix loop. The modules in this multi-module set need not be standard measurement singles, doubles, triples, but can be custom lengths as required by the trackage on them. But the overall length of the set should be equal to a common length of regular length modules, to match the length of modules on the opposite side of a loop layout. If not, the set would only be available for installation in a single row spine situation, or a custom length module would be required to make up the difference. Since the Ordock itself is a stub siding, module length is immaterial. The trestle and Ordock could use FlexTRAK and turnouts, but Cato UniTRAK could be used for everything else. Just think of the possibilities. Walthers has a nice terminal elevator kit that could be the starting point for an N-scale waterfront terminal elevator. 2 or 3 together would make a nice scene. Walthers used to have a kit of additional silos, but it's not on their catalog anymore. Modelers who enjoy scratch building structures have used PVC pipe to create their silos. Put your creativity and skills to the test. A unique module could be constructed to exit the main tracks of the T-TRAK layout and service the elevator. Or, again, a common large junction could be used to exit the mains to service the elevator. Or, build a series of modules to replicate the storage sidings to serve the elevator and create operational opportunities and challenges. T-TRAK is quite capable of supporting large scenes. This could create an interesting variation of a single module row spine or one side of a loop. Note the extreme length of the ore dock and the single track lead trestle. Note the grain elevator tail track extending into the lake. How old is this photo? Those are grain boxes. Another view of the ore dock and the grain elevator tail track. Yeah, a few grain boxes and later hoppers have gone for a swim. CN, Canadian National, serving the Thunder Bay ore dock with ore from Atacocan mines. Rapido GMD1s with a string of Atlas ore cars should do the trick. The photos show the extreme length and overall size of ore docks and terminal grain elevators. Artistic license will be the name of the game as these scenes are truncated to fit our model railroads, regardless of format. These would be perfect to showcase the true capabilities of the small, portable T-TRAK module format and its modelers. Thanks for watching.
All right.
That's cool. That gives you a bunch of ideas for how to use T-TRAK differently. Fantastic.
So while
Anybody have a question or a comment? Rich says, what size PVC pipe for those additional silos? I don't know if anybody has an answer to that.
Depends on the scale.
Right. Glenn says 1.5 to 2 inches.
I think mine are 2-inch. I'd have to go measure.
Next time you're at a train show, find one of those Walther's elevators. They're all over the place, and measure the size of that, or buy one of those and then build from it. Okay, super. Okay, then our next presenter then will be Steve Engelhardt, who hails from Chandler, Arizona, is an NTRAK and a T-TRAK modeler, I believe, and is going to share with us a little information about fire trains. And in his notes, he said maybe also provide a little secret to how you can really, really screw up an operating session on purpose or something like that. Anyway, Steve, take it away.
Okay, this is fire trains, or let's talk about don't play with matches in stock cars. I've never met a model railroader that wasn't a historian. So that's a good reason to care about things like this. They make great models. They're very easy to make models. And the good thing about them is they were built by shops, by railroad shops. There wasn't a standard fire car out there that people went out and bought. So like this illustrates several different kinds of cars that shops built. And so one nice thing about it is the rivet counter cannot get you. Because you could say the shop built it. That's the way it was. So it could just come out of your imagination. That's fine. And with this, you can absolutely, if you have a fire train, you can seriously jazz up and create total confusion in an operating session. Because in an operating session, on prototype railroads, when a fire train's coming through, it has the maximum priority. And so can you imagine getting an operating session, everybody's got their trains out and they're running trains and having fun. And all of a sudden the dispatch unexpectedly comes on the line and says, everybody get on the near siding right now.
Hmm.
Just imagine how much fun that would be in an operating session.
Woo!
So, trains are huge fire starters. They were in the past and they are now. It hadn't changed. It happens because of Hot Wheels. There are loads that catch fire all on their own. Smoke and exhaust stacks certainly were big fire starters and still are. And one of the biggies is people used to think, the train put out all kind of cinders out of the stack and that started the fires. The big fire starter with trains has been the wheels and the brakes. Because when they spark, they throw those sparks out into the weeds beside the tracks. And that's where the fires get going. And of course, derailments, they have their own share of fires. But in today's locomotive, the turbochargers, if they're not installed correctly or maintained right, hot carbon gets blown out the exhaust and you get a nice bit of flame coming out that way. So you'll see a lot of railroads that there are certain road names you'll see a lot of turbo fires with simply because they're not doing their maintenance. And then yards, think about this. If you've got a yard that's got 40 tracks in it and you get a fire in the middle track, can a structure fire engine get to it? No, it can't. So when you had big yards, you had to have fire trains to handle fires in yards. Now, if you got snorkel trucks on regular structure engines these days, yeah, they can get up beside the outside track. They might be able to get in 3-4 tracks worth with that snorkel over the top of the other cars, but not much more than that. So if it's a big yard, they got to have some fire capability of their own. So early park rangers, this is the main way they patrolled because they had so many fires due to steam trains. Now this is a picture. We've got a engine on the left out of its steamer. It's blowing out stuff. But then on the right is a turbo. These are all turbos burning, every single one of them. So see, you got some more going on. This Santa Fe train over on the right, this BNSF train, sorry BNSF, I still call them Santa Fe trains. That was an engine fire. Now, one thing that trains like to set on fires is bridges. All these bridges were set on fire by the trains, not by something like a wildfire, because you can see like the picture on the right, there's snow on the ground. So wildfire didn't start this, the train started it. On the left, that was a derailment that started that fire. The one in the middle, that was started by a train crossing the tracks, setting the trestle on fire. And then the Nana fire in Alaska, if you look closely at the track, right along the track, it's very black. So the Alaska Railway set that as they went through. In Tempe, here in Arizona in 2020, I remember this fire well. There was a broken rail on this bridge and there were no guardrails. So then the cars derailed and just started a massive fire. You could probably see this thing 2 states away. So these are some more examples of bridge fires, and look at that one in Texas. Look at that long trestle. Everything in Texas is bigger, and it all burned down. The upper left, that was caused by cargo in the boxcars. Down on the right, those Canadian Pacifics, that was a turbo fire. That was nothing caused from engines. Now in Decatur, Illinois, if you look right in the middle, that's where the explosion was. But if you look clear out to the bottom right side, you'll see damaged cars from that explosion. It really leveled everything in that yard. Structure engines aren't getting in there. You better have your own fire train you can pull in there. In June of 2019 in Madison, Wisconsin, firefighters had to take all the hose off of 2 engines and 2 trucks, fast them all together so they could get one 3,000-foot long hose that could reach to a passenger car that was burning in the middle of a yard. So this guy's trying to get over the tracks, getting into a yard. I find this picture interesting. The firemen over on the right in the black suits are dealing with a fire in those tanker cars. You see some fire down there on the rails. Then the firemen over on the left in the yellow suits, I've looked at this picture for, I can't tell you how much time I've spent looking at this picture, trying to figure out what the hell they're doing. Because they're spraying the hose straight up in the air at nothing. The fire's behind them. So I'm not sure exactly what those guys were up to. I just kind of enjoy the picture.
Pole fire, very common in the electric utility business.
It must be they're trying to cool down that light. So here's a snorkel. Here's some examples of snorkels doing their jobs. But you can see even this really big guy down here on the right, he's only going to be able to reach over the top of those cars several tracks worth. So if it's a big yard, he can't get all the way in there. And another thing too, you can see his outriggers are down. He's not only going to have trouble driving in there, he's going to have trouble finding enough space to get the outriggers down. Now, one thing that really liked to burn was things on the Southern Pacific, because you had lots of forest and lots of snow sheds. And if you look back in the old literature, when the snow sheds were being built, they never addressed or considered that those things were going to burn like crazy when they got a chance. And there's lots and lots of news articles about Southern Pacific fires in snow sheds. So these are the car here on the right is probably one of the older fire cars out there. It's built by Rainier in the 1880s. This one on the right, you see that on places like Durango and Southern, Cubbers and Toltec. A lot of railroads like that pull those little cars. They'll follow the train, and they got a little water tank in back, and they got a couple of firefighters that ride them. You'll see some more pictures on this in just a minute. And initially, the fires were fought by pumps on locos and hand tools. So in this photograph, if you look on the ground, there's two yellow spots. The yellow one on the left is coming off, that's coming off the boiler. The one on the right there, that goes back and goes up onto the water tank in back. So they've got pumps out of the boiler and out of the water tank in back, and that's how they're fighting that fire. Nice thing about steamers, they could easily do this, and they also had the basic hand tool for firefighting, which is a shovel. Very handy. These guys, the yellow shows the cans of foam that they mix in. So this guy right in the middle of the picture has got a blender, and he's pouring those cans of stuff in there. It's mixing with the water. And that stuff in those cans expands about 60 times to create foam, to put out fires like you see on that boxcar. So here's some other guys using hoses. This came off the tender again. The guys on the right are using ones off the engine. So here you can see right off the front of the boiler, they got a hose right up at the top. That yellow thing, and that's what they're using. This is a fire car on the right. That's the hose hooked to it. CPR fire train at McNaught lumber fire. So there's a color picture of this coming up of the actual fire car, which is right here on the right. This funny looking thing with the little head on it. Some more guys using the engine. Now this is getting just a little more modern, because now we're starting to use pumps on tanker cars. And these trains are brand new. Burlington Northern has spent a lot of money lately into fire trains. So these cars are something very new, but I'll also show you pictures of their even more modern one that carries even more water. It's this thing. So BNS has two fire trains in Washington, one at Pasco and one at Richmond. Pasco has 2 tank cars and a firefighting car with foam. That's what these guys here on the left are standing on. They're on that command car. And in Wishram, they've got the tank cars and they spray off of those, but they don't have the command car. And a regular structure fire engine will carry about 500 gallons of water. So you compare that to a 6-foot person. You compare that same person to one of these Burlington Northern new cars, they carry 30,000 gallons. And that gives you a comparison of the water that's carried between a structure engine and one of these cars. But a structure engine knows he's probably going to be able to get to a hydrant somewhere and make up for it. So this is that new Burlington Northern train doing its job. Here are a whole bunch of BNSF fire cars all put together. You can see right here in this bottom picture, fire suppression car. Like I say, most of these things came out of shops. And this picture is the exact car I've modeled. I'll show you a picture of it. So these were Southern Pacific cars. Big UP car. These are some nice looking ones. These would look really nice on your railroad, but you'd have to pay them yourself because nobody sells them. Now then, if you like the weather, here's your chance to go crazy because in many cases, they're not using brand new cars. These things are built in shops. And usually when you're building stuff in shops, you're using cars you've already got that aren't being used for their original purpose anymore. So these cars are fire trains. They just carry water now. Because you don't have to worry about keeping the water clean or anything. And maybe that's what these tank cars were carrying, stuff that they just can't use them for anything else. So now they just put water in them. So yeah, you make your fire car look real spiffy. Let me go back one actually. Notice down here on the right, those are on flat cars. And you see that pretty often where they'll take the undercarriage off the tank car and put it on a flat car. That's pretty common. So these were chemical hose cars, the red one and the one up at the top right. The bottom left was another tank car. This was used for foam, obviously, just sitting on a flat car. Conrail has they have several of these really pretty ones up here on the top left. And that's a Conrail engine that's having an engine fire. Tanks on a flat car again. Here's a tender that was converted to firefighting. So see, those were pretty good. A lot of water. Now, what you do typically during fire season, you'll stage an engine with a fire car. So you don't have to go get an engine. You'll just take an old reserve engine and park it out there along with a fire car. And what they used to do during steam days, they'd take an old steamer and park it connected to a fire car. And then they'd just leave a fireman out there keeping the thing running. You just keep just enough wood in it just to keep the steam up so that when they needed it, they could quickly get out and go. Of course, with diesel, that's not as much of a problem. Here's some guys fighting off of a bridge. Here, McLeod River Railroad, they got a fire car on a tank car, but they're moved into position just using an end loader. No big deal. So these were some older cars that were made out of wood, but the front one was the one they fought from, plus it had water. The back one was just a water car. They've done some pretty clever things with trucks getting into yards. So these are, the top thing obviously was built for the railroads. The bottom two are structure engines that were converted. Another converted structure engine. Union Pacific doing a little firefighting here. Shasta Fire. So Durango and Silverton. Remember a while ago I talked about that little speeder with the tanker behind it? On the Durango and Silverton, I assume they're still doing this. They were recently. A speeder follows it 1 mile back with 2 firefighters in it. And then 5 miles behind this speeder is another speeder that has 4 firefighters in it and a small tank car. Yes, was there a question? So as far as I know, Durango's still doing this. And you know they've got serious problems because right now they just finished another huge lawsuit with the Forest Service over starting fires. But they've always taken fire very seriously. These are fire tank cars on sidings on the Durango Silverton. So if you take that Durango Silverton trip, if you keep your eyes open, you'll notice 2 or 3 of those parked on different sidings all the way up the mountain. Now, just down the road from Durango Silverton is Cumbres and Toltec in Antonito, Colorado to Chalma, New Mexico. So they've got a speeder that follows their train. That's what this shows. They also had a structure engine and this Jeep. But I talked to these people a couple of years ago and they said they've gotten rid of the structure engine and anything like that. Now they just have the speeder because if they realized they can get the Forest Service or the local municipalities there faster than they could get their own trucks there. So they just use them if they can use a structure engine, and they don't have a big yard to protect. They're trying to deal with wildfire mostly. And so the local agencies can do that better. So they've gotten rid of all their non-railroad type firefighting stuff. These are all foreign. There's German, Russian, and Polish stuff here. This thing down on the right is a Russian foam gun. And it looks to me like they can roll it up the tracks and then roll it right up onto this flat car. And then that looks to me like a water cannon on top of that. So they probably roll that foam gun up there. And if they need foam, they can just draw it right, put the foam stuff in these tanks, draw it out of here and use this cannon. So if any of you belong to the N-Scale Enthusiast magazine, you'll probably may have noted that in the last few years, they did a special run on that new Burlington Northern fire train. And so these are pictures of the cars that you can buy from that special run. I don't know if they still have any, but they did, but that means they're out there somewhere. This is my personal fire car. I didn't build it. I did a favor for a guy that builds museum quality ships for museums. And I helped him out and he built this for me. So you can see all it takes is a tank car, some kind of platform, some kind of hose reel. You can figure this stuff out. All these parts are in your parts box. And letter it and poof, you got a fire car. So these were some HO models that were for sale. People could buy them. But if you're looking about making your own fire car, it's fun to look these up. You can look them up, use them for patterns. In a Coast Division meet in 2008, they had this. And here's a fire car recipe if you want to build one. This car was $8 on eBay. I just looked this morning and there were 2 very, very nice roundhouse tankers on there for $5 a piece. And they're painted white. They'd make really good fire cars. And one of them had microtrains couplers already on it. So with this, you need your $8 eBay tanker, or maybe take 20 minutes max to remove the decals. For most of it, probably wouldn't take that long. Get in your junk box, get out some platforms or pumps or railings or whatever you got stuck in there, stick it on the top, re-letter the car fire module or fire car. That's going to take you maybe 40 minutes max. Put on new trucks and couplers. Just because I'm a microtrains freak, sorry. And maybe 2-3 hours max, you've got yourself a fire car. And this came out of the Model Railroader Forum. If you get on mrhmag.com, you can find this. And it shows how they built this car. So you can see they took a regular tank car. They took a bunch of styrene, just cut it up, made railings, painted the whole thing yellow, and lettered the thing, instant fire car. So I started out talking about going to operation sessions and taking a fire train. So I dare you to do it. Maybe tell the host that you're going to do it. But just sneak an engine in and maybe fire car or two and stick them behind the roundhouse. And in the middle of that session, just have the dispatcher to tell everybody to get their trains off the tracks on the nearest siding because fire trains coming through, and just let it totally mess up the session. You'll be famous or hated and never invited back. So I'm all for that.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome, Steve. Once again, here I am on a ZoomTRAK listening about something that I know nothing about and hadn't even thought of. So that's just awesome. You just created another problem, another train I have to figure out how to model here. One question I have is, I mean, you know, in every little town in the country, there are 3 fire stations. The equipment is very, very close to the potential scene of the action. How does the railroad deal with the fact that their equipment could be 50 miles away from the fire or I don't know, 500 miles away from the fire, right?
That's usually why if they have a big yard somewhere by an old roundhouse or somewhere, they'll have a fire car stuck out there to deal with the yard.
Uh-huh.
They will let the municipality deal with the structure stuff. You know, or with wildfire.
Right.
When it comes to a big yard, you got to have some way to get into it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
guys have yards. Can you imagine trying to drive anything across it or sometimes even down it?
No, that's crazy. So they take really good care of where they have a whole lot of infrastructure, like a yard. They've got a lot of stuff right there. But that bridge, that wooden bridge that might be burning out in the middle of nowhere, there's not much you can do about that. It doesn't.
Once those timber trestles get started, you're not going to do much to put those out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because a lot of times they're also out there far enough that you can't get like snorkels in there. So a regular fire truck has trouble, you know, it can maybe get to it, but if it's a very tall trestle, it has trouble dealing with it.
Huh. Fantastic. Wow. Well, that was really super interesting. In the chat, Richard has said maybe what you need to do is start a fire first at the operating session. I think NRail is not going to endorse that.
Well, we'll see. I'm going to go to E24, and they're talking to me about doing this program for them. So maybe we'll figure out a fire in Wyoming.
That would be a cool layout to have everything stop on for a while.
Yeah, fire car's going with me. We may try that.
Fantastic.
He's bringing modules for the NTRAK layout, not the Fremo N layout.
Oh, okay. All right.
Oh, T-TRAK. No, they're for
T-TRAK,
not the NTRAK.
There you go. Well, thank you very much, Steve. We really appreciate it. And it was super interesting.
Thanks for the opportunity.
All right. Okay. Well, looks like we don't have a poll. So we'll just say thank you to all of you NRail N-scalers for showing up on a Saturday afternoon. Good to see you all. Thanks for our presenters, and we will see you all next month.
All right. Thanks, Sean. Thank you, everybody. Much appreciated. And sorry for the slow start and a little bit of hiccups and burps in there, but we will do better at communicating next time and make sure that it's all goes smoothly. So y'all have a great evening. John, thank you very much for being our MC. And we will.
Thank you, Chief.
Yep, you guys did a good job.
All right, y'all take care. Have a great Saturday. Night all.
Adios, amigos.
Thanks again, John.
Okay.
Great job.
Thank you, John. Great session.
Good to see you out there, Tony.